Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight, I want to welcome back to the show, Deborah Tavares. Deborah exposes the connections between global trends of man-made and corporate military-controlled technologies, weaponized frequencies, and other major programs intended to cause damage to our health and reduce the population and eliminate our freedom. She's here tonight to give us some extremely important information about what Memorial Day really is, 5G, weaponized frequencies, and planned failures in our infrastructure, and so much more. Deborah, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you have a lot of information to present to us. Before we get to that, I'd love to get just a little bit about your background and what it is that you do.
Well, yes, Chris, thank you for having me on the show. First of all, I was just a regular person, so I thought back in the days when I was raising a family and had a self-employed business. I knew nothing about what I now know. And it was through the process of realizing the severity of the betrayal and the illusion and the propaganda and the media's efforts to control and seize our minds that suddenly threw me into a world of hastily wanting to know just how bad and how deep the betrayal had been.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to meet some very significant people early on in my learning process that are no longer with us. So I stand on the shoulders of many people before me that were exposing many of the aspects that now I have dug into. And I dig into documents. I utilize documents. I do run several websites. StopTheCrime.net is our major website. My secondary website, and not necessarily secondary, extremely important, is primarywater.org. And I run smartmetersmurder.com. And it all started for me really back in the building days when we were building for housing developments in Southern California. And that expanded then into finding out about the plans and building department codes that were being changed, and it wasn't making sense. So without further ado on my background in that regard, I want to say that it is with tremendous sorrow that today, of course, is Memorial Day, where we remember our fallen soldiers and those in combat that sadly were tricked into combat, thinking that they were supporting a country that was for freedom. And I say this with a great burden because certainly I have family members that were in some of the various wars, and my husband was in Vietnam. In fact, he was on the Oriskany during the summer of 1967 when the forestall caught on fire because of a hot start by someone that was a hot jock, and nearly took out that aircraft carrier. And my husband's ship, that was the Forrestal that nearly sank. My husband was on the Oriskany, and they went to aid the ship as it was on fire and retrieving injured servicemen as well as bodies and aiding in fire equipment and firefighting. Having said that, I want to refer everyone to the document, which is an important download. What my intention is, Chris, is to do Cliff Notes tonight so that I can move people through material that they themselves can find their own proof and evidence, and they can stand behind and understand far more quickly than it took for myself and my team to learn. It took many years to get to this place, and we don't have that kind of time. So the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document is a must read. It's only about a 41-page document, and you will read in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars what the intention of the military was all about. And on page 39 and 40 and 41, it is horrific what is told to our servicemen and women that have certainly been struggling since the effects of being in the theater of mass destruction. And I can only say that I've been reading the statistics and hearing that there are about 22 former service people that are committing suicide every single day. 22. And we know that our returning veterans are not getting the services that they need. Many are homeless. You have to ask yourself why. What has happened? And when you read what's really behind the draft and the military service in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, you'll find that they're bankers' wars. It's for money. And you'll find out how they used the media and schemes to allow women, mothers and fathers and sisters to encourage their loved one to go to war and possibly die. And I will read one of the last comments that they have to say in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars on page 41. And this is one of the factors about war and service. And it says this, quote, cattle. Those who do not use their brains are no better off than those who have no brains. And so this mindless school of jellyfish, father, mother, son, and daughter, become useful beasts of burden or trainers of the same. And they talk about the emotional pressure put on the family to send their children to war and beyond. And of course, this is part of the war machine and all part of enslavement, genocide, and mind control.
That
So
is
without
absolutely
saying,
unbelievable.
yeah, and it's with a very sad heart that I say this today on Memorial Day, because certainly many of our soldiers, men and women, fought for the psyops, what they were taught, and certainly we have to honor that, because none of us knew, and none of us still know, or many of us still do not know what our reality is. And it's essential that we learn what our reality is, because we are being slaughtered now on the battlefield called USA Inc. We're being slaughtered on the battlefield now called Earth Inc. worldwide. So again, I encourage everybody, please download Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars and understand that this is a genocide document. It is a document for the operations. It's a manual to subvert history and law, to create manipulation, enslavement, and to induce and expand upon genocide. So I'm going to do a flyover right now so that everybody can understand the multiple types of assaults that you can expect in 2019 and 2020 and beyond. But what we have uncovered is the most diabolical and ruthless plans that you can possibly imagine. And I invite all of you to go to stopthecrime.net, go to our hot topics page, go to our source document page, and listen to prior radio shows, please, because I will not be able to tell you all that I would like to on the broadcast with Chris today. But there's so much that you need to know, and we're going to roll into it right now.
Right. And before you do, I just want to say that, I cover planetary and Earth changes on a, 2 times a week, maybe more. And the report that I just did and the last few reports are so disturbing. The things occurring all around our planet right now, I can tell that they're ramping up just in the few years that I've been doing this, and it's getting so much worse. You can see the changes that are occurring so rapidly that it can't be normal. But yeah, I want you to go ahead and present what you have, because it is very important for everyone to hear this.
Yeah, it's most important, I think, to understand that we don't have a government. I think if people can just wrap their brain around that, it will be easier to understand the documents. And I think what people need to know, of course, is that we're under a worldwide government of occupation. And the definition of occupation is the seizure and control of a country by military forces using weapon systems. And we know, of course, that silent weapons systems are fully engaged to massively reduce and control the populations worldwide. One of the ways in which we plow through the documents is we certainly know that fossil fuels was never our petroleum, that petroleum is a renewable, and in all of the climate action plans that your cities have adopted for you are saying that you must reduce your use of fossil fuels. The next aspect is, of course, the idea that we have to lower the temperature of the Earth by 2 degrees Celsius. When you read the documents, you find that it says in order to lower that temperature, we have to reduce our consumption and our consumerism back to the year of 1750. That's pre-industrial time. And of course, millions and millions of people will die. And we're seeing this cutback and reduction in our small businesses now, increased taxes. We're seeing now also that shipping now must reduce their use of fuel. And they're required to, in order to reduce their use of fuel, one of the first ways they're doing that, Chris, is they're going to slow down their speed in exports and imports on the oceans. That's going to massively increase our costs. This is happening now. In fact, I recently came back from London where I was giving a talk, and I ran into someone just by happenstance that was attending a maritime meeting where they were alarmed at the amount of fuel reduction that is being required in the shipping industry. Everything that is occurring, this new Green Deal that you're hearing about, I want everybody to think about this. It's not new, it's not green, and it's not a deal. Anything at all that has the word green in it, you need to think of brown, you need to think of death, because there's nothing alive in these programs or in these documents or in the policies that have been adopted in all of your cities right now. We are being taken out. We're being taken out not only by weather weapons of storms, which everyone, you just need to go outside and look and recognize what the cloud structures look like. For me right now here on Memorial Day in Northern California, we're seeing heavy chemtrailed skies. We're seeing horrific cloud structures formed, and we're seeing carbon black. We know that within the next 24 hours or 36 hours or so, there's going to be some kind of a weather event somewhere in the United States. So we have to start recognizing what is, because our media, our weather reports are all lies, total lies. And there is no place to hide, absolutely no place to hide. You can't go to South America, you can't go to wherever you think you might go to hide from this. We're all, literally, we're all in a petri dish, being cultured and mutated into something other than human. That's what we are. That's what's happening to all of us now. So as we move through the documents and I talk about what we face, I encourage you all to consider what your solutions and your options are, because in knowing what is happening, you can create solutions. So let's launch into it, and not in any particular order. But I want to let you know that fires are normal, spoken about in the climate action plans that I've looked at throughout the world. Fires, power outages, floods, and diseases and viruses and toxic water and dust. These are normal consequences of the weaponization of the weather, and they are in your climate action plans. So as you may consider trying to relocate, go into the climate action plan of where you think it's safe and see what that plan tells you is in store for you. And some examples of that. I pulled up the climate action plan for Indiana, for Bedford, Indiana. And you can read that for yourself, but it is the unthinkable. They're talking about outages being pretty standard and normal. And we know that power outages, black starts as they're being called, are being done by our utility companies, AKA Rothschild, and we're going to be blamed for it. So one of the opportunities is for everyone that's listening, have a power outage party, if you will. Try to live in your home for the weekend without flipping any switches. Make a note of the things you will need, because you will need these things. Power outages are going to escalate because we're going to be told that because of climate change and heat temperatures, the grids are going to go down. No, 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 no. Climate change is weather weapons, and the grid is going to be intentionally taken down here and there, so it will look as plausible deniability. I want to talk about dams right now, dams and reservoirs. I also want to talk about the other worldwide infrastructure, not just dams and reservoirs, but I want to talk about levees, bridges, roads, and wastewater treatment plants. These have all been set up as booby traps. I'm going to give you a moment to think about that, because while it sounds insane, it is. But what we discovered a number of years ago in some documents out of the UK and Israel is the intention to defer maintenance on all of these structures worldwide. So deferred maintenance means that monies that would normally have been spent to keep these facilities in condition has not been. It's been used, and they've been weaponized now against us. So here's an example of what I mean by dams and reservoirs. And this is going to maybe be hard to wrap your head around, but this is a fact because we discovered this for ourselves, and you can as well. An easy acronym is to think of it like this: fake lakes make quakes. Now, how did our research team dig into this and find all the documents that prove everything that you're going to hear me saying to be factual? Is because we know that we have primary water. And primary water is water that is continuously created. It's a renewable. And it's created just below the mantle of the earth. When hydrogen and oxygen merge, turns to vapor and surfaces. And we see that surfacing of water in hot and cold springs and in geysers, in beautiful cascading waterfalls at the top of some of the mountains where it doesn't snow in the Hawaiian Islands. Certainly we see oases in deserts. And there's a wonderful place. You can type it in, Fly Geyser. That's F-L-Y, Fly Geyser. And you'll see what happened when a rancher was digging for water a number of years ago, and actually they hit hot water, and they capped it off. And you'll be able to see it's suggested as one of the top 10 go-to places to see in your lifetime. So Fly Geyser, I would recommend you see what primary water looks like. So when you think and you know that water comes from below continuously and is created, water that has shown to increase the IQs in countries that are utilizing primary water and are really not aware that that's what they're using as drinking water. Because we have all been taught that our drinking water and our irrigation water comes from rain and snowmelt. Rain and snowmelt is the secondary water supply. And rain and snowmelt is the evaporation of primary water. We are the water planet. And why I am spending a little time in describing this is because our water is being reduced. Our access to water right now, locally, everywhere, is being reduced in policies. Your local perceived elected officials that are running United Nations and World Bank policies through your city, building departments and planning departments, they're reducing water accessibility. So when you realize that Muammar Gaddafi, who built the Great Man-Made River Project, which was an amazing feat, he was able to access enough water for over 6 million people in Libya. And it's an oil-rich country, and at the time, Libya was getting ready to move away from the banksters, and their dinar, Muammar was going to back the dinar with gold, and they had primary water. They were turning their desert into a growing Garden of Eden because of the primary water that was being accessed. Again, the Great Man-Made River Project. And the United States and the UN and NATO, we blew that up. We sent Libya into a humanitarian crisis because we cut off the water supply. That was being delivered to many of the Libyan towns for free because the government utilized the oil proceeds for the benefit of the Libyan people. And because they required no funding from the IMF and the World Bank was not going to have that. So Libya was literally blown to smithereens. You can look that up. It's a very sad reality. And we discuss that, and that is discussed fully on primarywater.org. So because we have primary water, and we've been deceived into believing that we have to create a system to move the toxic secondary water supply around to deliver water into our municipal water supply, they've created reservoirs and dams. Now, the Hoover Dam and Lake Mead, when it was built in 1930, there were never earthquakes there before they created that fake lake. And suddenly there were seismic activities there as never existed prior to that. That's the case with dams all over the world. Massive increase of seismic activity. Why is that? And they know this, and why is it being hidden? Because it has already caused immense destruction in many villages. There have been thousands and thousands of people that have been killed because of earthquakes that were induced by reservoirs. And you can look that up for yourself. Now, how is this inducement? How does this occur? Well, here's what happens. The water, it's called impoundment. The water is choked, and they create a fake lake, backed by the reservoir. And the weight of the water is so heavy, and it creates structural slippage on the geographical structure below. The water also lubricates that geographical structure below the reservoir. And so as the reservoirs fill in the winter and empty in the summer, there's tremendous displacement that's occurring, and that causes earthquakes, and they know it. So we're very worried here about the Oroville Dam. Many of you may have heard that there was an evacuation of about 150,000 people last year when the spillway was showing evidence of bursting.
Right.
And I can tell you that there's going to be a benefit for them to breach this reservoir, because California is, and there's some controversy, but it's somewhere between the 5th and the 7th largest gross national product area in the world. And so California needs and is being taken apart right now. We're being absolutely taken apart with all the fires and all the floods and all the landslides. And now the Oroville Dam, which is and will, when they let it go, literally kill and displace about 150,000 people, increase lack of housing, wipe out some major farmland. And all of that water is going to find its way through other tributaries down through the Feather River, down through San Francisco, and it's going to eliminate the water that Los Angeles needs, because again, the water barons of Los Angeles required that back in the 60s, the great aqueduct that goes down Central California be built, rather than listening to the primary water experts that were pleading with the water agencies in Los Angeles before they built this monster to deliver poisonous water to us. Now remember, the water that comes down from rain and snowmelt is very contaminated and very toxic. It's coming out down through the atmosphere where we have toxins from all of the chemtrailing, the bomb testing, flowing down the hillsides through farmlands where they've used toxins and fertilizers, and then being contained in these reservoirs where further poisons and toxins are added before it is then shipped into our homes for drinking water. Fluoride being one of the poisons of many, which causes massive corrosion in our plumbing. In fact, when we researched some of the insurance payouts on interior home leaks, we found that water leaks was a major payout event with insurance companies in areas that are fluoridated. So I can say to you that fake lakes cause quakes, and it's known. And the destruction of our infrastructure is being amped up, and we're being told that because of climate change, because of increased rain events, our infrastructure was built at a time before we had climate change, and it's not built to withstand the increased intensity of the weather now. And that, again, is all levees, dams and reservoirs, and wastewater treatment plants that are being swamped when they send over an atmospheric river overhead. In fact, that happened here in Northern California several months ago, in between fires and an upcoming fire season now for 2019. Our wastewater treatment plant was swamped. Heavy contamination in the Santa Rosa, Sonoma County area occurred because the fecal matter, the urine, and all of the pharmaceuticals were floating in the low-lying laguna areas and made their way into the Russian River before it flooded out part of a town, which took out quite a bit of the commercial building area. All of that contaminated water saturated the walls, the flooring, all of the equipment, and many people are out of business now. You've probably not heard of this. You don't hear about things that are happening here. You don't hear about what's happening here after the fires that devastated us and cost us a loss of over 8,000 homes, and that's before Paradise was hit a year later. But the floods that occurred recently flooded down the Russian River, which flows along Bohemian Grove. And there were thousands of homes that were literally standing in water. These flood events, it's interesting to note, and you can observe this for yourself, they seem to have maximum benefit when a high tide is created. When a high tide is created, it does not allow the water that would normally flow from our streams and creeks and rivers to flow out into the ocean. It backs up, and we sit in this contamination longer. Now, why do I say high tides are created? Because they are. Because just as weather weapons are controlling our weather, there are technologies and weapons that are controlling the seas, increasing the temperature in the seas, and certainly killing many of the species and killing coral reefs. We're seeing all of this. But this is all an intentional assault using microwave frequencies and more. Not only the Fukushima radiation and all of the poisons that have been dumped into the ocean for many, many, many decades. Now, before I go further, I'm going to ask that everyone please watch on YouTube. In fact, you can go to stopthecrime.net to our YouTube video channel. We have it posted, the report from Iron Mountain. And why I'm suggesting that is twofold. The YouTube version is Christian-based. It does align the intentions of the report with biblical scripture. For those of you that are not biblically willing, then read the report, download the report yourself. It does not align itself with biblical scripture. But I would urge for everyone to watch the YouTube video channel or the YouTube on the report from Iron Mountain, because you will learn how and why climate change and global warming was invented. It was invented. This report was released after a few years of experts working on this for the CIA and the FBI and the world banksters. It was released soon after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and it was given to Johnson. And because of the contents of the report, Johnson said, well, it's a hoax. We're going to just say it's a hoax. It never was a hoax. So everyone, you need to pay attention to this report. Everything that this report covers has already come to pass in many ways. So it's not a matter of running forward in this report so much as it is to see and look at it as a checklist of what has occurred. Now, why did they invent global warming and climate change? It was to be a replacement for war as we have known it, where guns, missiles, planes, and more are used to bomb and injure and maim, because they knew that the people wouldn't continue to go on with killing one another. And they needed a replacement for war that would be as deadly, as life-threatening, and would be globally accepted. And they invented global warming. They said it would take a generation and a half to pollute, to allow industry to pollute the planet enough to blame it on us. Now you can watch this report and watch what happened, and you will see for yourselves. So while many of you may be very concerned about global warming and climate change, you need to understand it was invented. There needs to be a baseline of understanding as we move forward into these slaughter documents of mankind, because we are being slaughtered. Genocide is what is occurring in all of these documents. Many of you know that what is occurring overhead is fully denied. Many of you are frustrated with the fact that you see it for yourselves. Well, for those of you that are still in doubt, I would highly recommend that you take a look at the 1960 CIA Memorandum for Climate Control. The 1960 CIA Memorandum for Climate Control. And understand, this has been stealthily rolled out. In fact, many of the genocide programs that I have on stopthecrime.net have been put in place, and one of the most disturbing genocide plans is from the deagle.com website. And I talk about this, this genocide plan actually with Dr. Bill Deagle, not the same Deagle. The L and the E are transposed. But I have a weekly radio show at 1 p.m. Pacific time on NutriMedical Report. And we discussed the Deagle.com genocide plan. And it's on the YouTube channel of Stop the Crime, and it's called 5G, The Culling of Humanity. And you can listen to that discussion. It's very important to understand the haste in which we are being eliminated. The plan is, and it's not to say that all of their plans come to fruition when they desire, but the plan is by the year 2025, not that far away, that the United States population will be reduced by 83%. Australia's population is planned to be reduced by at least 50%, and somewhere around 73% for the UK, and it goes on. They're eliminating what is considered as those that are creating the highest levels of waste and the highest levels of greenhouse gas emissions. The plan is this. It's very simple. In all of the climate action plans that our team has reviewed, the plan is to reduce our access to water and electricity and transportation, and eliminate our access to rural lands. We're seeing that occurring now. In fact, just right now for this Memorial Weekend along the Russian River, it's their opening weekend of beaches along the Russian River, where the stores that have survived the recent flooding hope and had planned to recapture some profits. They've closed all those beaches down, Chris, and they're closed down for the next few months. We are being destroyed. We are being destroyed, and it's all for our safety. They claim this is occurring.
It just makes you wonder what kind of psychopaths are calling the shots in this. It's completely unbelievable and disgusting.
Well, it is, and they're soulless people. And in fact, when people read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, you will hear it being said that you are selected to be engaged in this elimination process because of who you must be. Do not waver from what you must be to move forward with these plans. This is a warning by those that are involved. We have people that are human compromised. Now, many people think of what's happening in many ways. Certainly we know that we're under control by the world bankers, by those that have all the wealth. They are in control. We know that the United States was subdued back in 1933 when we were literally taken and collateralized, the IMF, the United Nations, and the international banks. We have had phony fiat currency, and this is a worldwide situation. This is not just the United States. Now, a larger concept to wrap your head around is what I said when we started the program, Earth Inc. There really are no borders, because chemtrailing and weather assaults now, weather warfare is worldwide. There are no borders. There is no nation that is not being hit by weather weapons, even Russia, even China, places that you would imagine would not be assaulted because of the borders. The differences that are created between our countries are only to allow the bankers to launch wars and to keep us engaged in the idea, such as recently said, that we have to hurry and deploy 5G in the United States and get this deployment done ahead of China. Because if we don't do it before China, well, then China will control the Internet of Things. Well, 5G is an extermination grid. It's also a foundational grid for worldwide weapons systems, and it is the requirement to operate all of the spin-offs of mixed reality, artificial intelligence, CV cameras in our cities. It is one of the core foundational elements also of the future planned Mark of the Beast, which is the inserting of RFID chips in our hands, which is now happening in many areas throughout the world, where every aspect of who you are is on your chip. Your birthday, where you were born, your license, your vaccinations, your education, the property you own, and more. The RFID chip, again, is going to dictate whether you can buy or sell. And people need to understand this because this is happening. When I was recently, just a few weeks ago, in the UK, I had a number of people coming up to me from different parts of the world saying, yes, that this is already happening where they are, the RFID chip. And people are welcoming it. People want the RFID chip. It's trendy. it's fun, it's cool to have a keyless access to your apartment. Now businesses, of course, in many areas are now requiring that people have the RFID chip. And it's more than an RFID chip. It is a kill grid. You can be turned off, you can be killed remotely with this chip. And I did a talk in the UK about this in great detail. I won't have time to do that on the show today, Chris, but I will be posting a talk I'm giving here in about a week that I will cover much of this in depth. And we'll have a 3-part video where we will be showing all of the documents as we go through this in detail. Again, my intention for the show today is to do a snapshot of what people can expect and what is happening so you can see this occurring.
Right.
Now, again, I would conclude with the 5G by saying this is a global deployment. Any of the cities that you're hearing about that have tried to stop it, the cities have absolutely no jurisdiction. The FCC is actually controlled by Google and Crown Castle. The FCC is just a puppet show. And the President of the United States is a puppet controlled by the international bankers. You must first understand that.
Thank you.
And apart from the report from Iron Mountain, and apart from Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, which you can read that, and it says this, I would recommend that everybody watch this movie, if you've missed it, called Vice, V-I-C-E. It discusses the terrorism under Dick Cheney. And you will see what happened with the executive orders and how our country was usurped. Even then, it's been an ongoing, drop-by-drop, absolute slaughter of everything we've been told in school or in the media that our country represents. It doesn't. We have many good and decent people that have been mind controlled through the false media and propaganda. It's time now to not be mind controlled anymore. We simply do not have the time. And Chris, there's a tremendous amount of people questioning vaccines, and I can only say that I would highly recommend that you watch what Dr. Andrew Moulden, M-O-U-L-D-E-N, discovered, a Canadian neurologist. Dr. Andrew Moulden, before he seemed to have died rather mysteriously, was a neurologist and was noticing that more patients and children were evidencing strokes, and he wanted to find out what was going on with all of these strokes. And then he became concerned with all of the MDs recommending vaccinations. So he went through school to become an MD to find out why the MDs were recommending stroke vaccinations. And then he realized what was happening and how big pharma was involved. And he shows you in his YouTubes, Dr. Andrew Moulden, M-O-U-L-D-E-N. You can type him in on stopthecrime.net. You can watch the 3 YouTubes that we recommend. You will see how children are stroked out with each vaccination. Not all children show the signs of a stroke, but the eyes are one of the first areas where the strokes occur, where the evidence occurs, where people will have lazy eyes, droopy eyelids, people have droopy cheeks, you'll see a drooped corner of a mouth. As you start to realize that people don't have the symmetry in their faces, it's because of stroking. Now, what we face with all the poisons in the food and water, air, vaccines, and more, is similar to what I think about when I think about the movie The Gladiator. And I think about the gladiator being in that holding area prior to going out to fight Caesar in the Colosseum, and how Caesar went down there into the holding area. And while the gladiator was bound, he impaled his dagger under the gladiator's shield, under his breastplate, to handicap him for the fight. And we have all been handicapped. We have all been impaled. We have all been subjugated to injury. And now we're going out onto the final battlefield in the Colosseum. And I can say that some of the things we must do right now is clean up our diet, drop all flour and sugar, stop all flour and sugar. This is highly recommended by others. It's what many people are now doing, and that is a recommendation. Certainly watch what you're eating, stay away from GMOs. Go to the solution page of stopthecrime.net. We're needing now to order special blue tech lenses in our eyewear. If you wear prescription glasses, look into blue, BLU tech lenses because of the LED lights being toxic. And also the LED lights are part of a surveillance system using beamed weapons system to kill us. Make no mistake about this. Mark Steele, who is a 5G well-known in the UK, has taken apart these street lights and has proven without a doubt, because he's an expert, that these street lights are now full on-board battlefield weapons systems. And your cities are not batting an eye at this deployment of the new lights. In fact, because they will reduce their cost, they're actually welcoming these new street lights. So there are things we can do to preserve our eyesight as long as possible, and I would suggest that we consider some of the things that you'll see on the solutions page of stopthecrime.net.
Now, Deborah, when it comes to 5G, you know, a lot of my subscribers, including myself, are very concerned about 5G. It's going to be rolled out. We can't do anything about that. I mean, what can we do to combat what they're doing?
5G, what we're, of course, hoping, I mean, we've got scalar waves. We've got frequencies that are rolling out, and we're not able to stop it. Let's face it. Let's face it.
Right.
What we can do is try to survive as long as possible. It isn't fully rolled out yet. It is also part of the satellite system. This is a destruction. This is a mass genocide program. So I'm not suggesting that people give up, that people feel that there is no hope. We default into eternity. And this walk that we're all in, this life, this embodiment that we're all in, is we all have souls. That's what I believe. And I believe that we default into eternity. Now, I don't know everyone listening believes that or not, but I would suggest you take a look at that, because we have evil presenting itself in the most satanic ways possible on this planet. Weather weapons wiping out cities. There isn't one day, Chris, that I don't read where some place, somewhere, hasn't been besieged by some type of a weapon assault, be it a flood, a tornado, high winds, fires, earthquakes, you name it. It's
Right.
being created by something so evil. And when you look at 5G and the fact that we can't stop it, that our cities have absolutely no jurisdiction, I hope that people realize what this means. I hope they see reality, because the RFID chips are coming and they're electronic devices, and you'll have to have these in order to access your bank account. And as I said, all your vital data will be on this RFID chip. Your virtual wallet will be there. The new world order is a one world virtual currency as well. And everything will be on this chip. And we will be remotely controlled. And when you consider the enormity of the mind control that has already occurred, think about it, Chris. The levels of mind control now are so pervasive that people wonder if there's chemtrailing overhead. People wonder if they should be vaccinated or not.
I mean, I see zombies everywhere. Most people, they don't pay attention to what's going on, and if you tell them, they don't care. Most people just don't care, and it is so sad. We have a portion of us that are awakening, becoming more enlightened, but unfortunately, there's a large portion that are going the opposite direction because of the poison in the food, water, and air, what they're feeding us in the media and social media. They're targeting our kids through this. I mean, you know, it's a battle that is devastating us.
Well, it's killing us. And I don't know that I think that people don't care. I think that people have been chemically lobotomized.
Right.
I look at what I learned when we went to Ireland recently, and you recall the fighting Irish spirit. Ireland is heavily, heavily fluoridated. And I have a YouTube up on stopthecrime.net. I was interviewed by this wonderful woman from Ireland who's a news reporter. I would recommend everyone listen to that. But they've been fighting against fluoride, and they can't stop it. It's how they dumb everyone down. And so for those of you that are in a fluoridated water supply, you're in a fluoridated water supply.
I
and
am
it's keeping you
down here as
sedate.
well.
I'm sorry?
That I am down here as well in South Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, I can only say that we face weapons beyond our imagination. And when I look at the NASA war plan that I've talked about over the years, it's posted on stopthecrime.net. It is, I call it the NASA war plan. So you can just type that in. That's not actually the name of it, but it was a PowerPoint that was delivered by the chief NASA scientist out of Langley Research Center 2 months before 9/11. And on one of the pages, it talks about increasingly critical are human limitations and human downsides. That humans are too large, we're too heavy, we're too tender, we're too slow physically and mentally, we require huge costs, and we have rapidly decreasing to negative value added. That's on page 66. On page 67, it talks about robotics in the large, that robots save lives, enhances affordability, redefines risk and threat to the environment, and enhances effectiveness. Now, we're being told that humans are polluting the earth and we're damaging the earth, and that now we must pay reparations for the earth's reconstruction, and that everything is unsustainable. In fact, humans are unsustainable. It tells us in the United Nations Rio Sustainability Development Principles, it says all life, human and non-human, have equal value. Resource consumption above what is needed to supply vital human needs is immoral. Human populations must be reduced. Civilization must radically change present economic, technological, and ideological structures. And reparations, monetary expense, laws, rules, regulations, population reduction are required for the damage that humans have caused. So the documents tell us all of this. And again, as I said, the report from Iron Mountain talks about and discusses how they will determine the minimum and optimum levels of destruction of life, the destruction of property, and the destruction of natural resources. This is what it says in the report from Iron Mountain. Again, I would urge everybody to watch it. There's another document up on Stop the Crime, and it's called Population Engineering and the Fight Against Climate Change. And on page 1, it says the threat posed by climate change justifies population engineering. That's eliminating people. On page 2, in the footnotes, it talks about geoengineering, which is weather weapons, along with reducing consumption and related waste and renewable energy. Reducing human fertility rates is morally justifiable. Page 4, it talks about relocating climate refugees. I'm going to put a bookmark there and come back to that one in a second. We're going to discuss this in more detail because this is what all of you can expect in 2019. The next, on page 5, it talks about global greenhouse gas emissions must decline to near zero. There's no life at near zero, okay? And on 15, it says Earth cannot sustain larger populations of wealthier individuals. And in the NASA War Plan, it says that there will be no more haves or have-nots. We will become equal. And this is what we're seeing with the yellow vests in France right now, and what you're not hearing in the media. You are seeing France being turned into a dictatorship. The yellow vests, of which we understand from the conference that we had, that there are hundreds of thousands of French people in various towns, not just in Paris, where we're being shown PSYOPs media about the yellow vests, that are protesting what Macron has done, devastating to them. They've been implementing the climate action plans. So what do I mean by that? They've been reducing people's ability to access diesel and petroleum. They've increased the cost so that France is known for being a country nation. People have to travel distances just like we do in the United States. And we're on the hit list too. And that's the reason why you're hearing about electric cars, getting us out of gasoline cars. They're telling us that there's no more fossil fuel. Why do you think that they're trying to take down Venezuela right now and cover up the fact that oil is a renewable? They want to shut off the oil production so that we just don't learn the truth. Origins of Oil is an excellent YouTube to watch. Origins of Oil, to learn about the PSYOPs of the lies of fossil fuel when it's a renewable, just like water. So getting back to relocating climate refugees, that's the game. That's what we're going to see more of here in the United States. In fact, Chris, I have a YouTube up, and it is entitled Coastlines Under Attack. And I have been expanding on this with other documents in most recent radio shows as well. And I would urge everybody to understand the level of weaponization that has now been unleashed in our oceans. So I'm going to back up a little bit for those of you that have not heard this before. I'm going to tell you that in the NASA War Plan, we learned much in that PowerPoint. And one of the things that we repeatedly saw throughout that plan was the use of blast wave accelerators. When we researched blast wave accelerators, we found out that it was an operation called Operation SEAL, S-E-A-L. Operation SEAL was a method to create a tsunami against the low-lying areas of Japan in World War II. Had either one of the bombs not detonated. Well, they didn't need to use it against the low-lying areas because the bombs detonated. But this blast wave accelerator, coastal erosion, sea level rise, if you will, has been used worldwide ever since. And what we learned is that every branch of military, every single branch, is engaged in weaponization against the coastlines. Not only that, every branch of the military worldwide is also planning and are also already relocating to higher ground. This is war games on the coastlines. There are already policies in coastline building departments and planning departments called planned retreat. And when we first heard about planned retreat as a builder, we wondered, what on earth is planned retreat? Well, here's the definition. You allow your land, your home, to be consumed by the sea. You walk away. And in many instances, you are also required to demolish your residence, your home, or your business and walk away without any remuneration. This is planned retreat. Now, planned retreat, forced retreat is escalating because we're going to see many more weapons being used against the coastlines. And we're seeing this worldwide. In fact, Chris, I took with me to England the planned retreat documents for England. It's an island country, and so is Ireland. You can find this for every country, for every coastline, everywhere. So what this planned forced retreat is going to do, it's going to represent the world's largest forced retreat, migration, forced migration ever. Now, why are they wanting us off the coastlines? Well, 70% of the populations live on the coastlines because people feel better generally. I mean, not just the shipping aspects and the coastal ports and all of that, but people benefit from the negative ions. They're clearer in thinking, fewer diseases, and people have a high when they have negative ions. Well, they're less mind controlled as well. So to be moved off of the coastlines accomplishes greater accessibility for global mind control. And that's one of the reasons. Also, the plan is to keep us in a constant state of chaos and fear and constant state of change where we are moved consistently because of weather weapon attacks in our communities that devastate our homes and where we live and our businesses. This is a plan. Homelessness is a plan. Homelessness is going to explode. It already is, but it's going to become more of a displacement program that's going to bring in vast amounts of money with the illusion that the homeless people are being helped, and they're not. And they're not. It's a way in which to extract more money from all of us because we want to help the homeless people. We want to see some level of affordable opportunities in housing, at least to get them out of the snow and the wind and the rain and all of the weaponized assaults that we're all facing. But the money's not going to the homeless people. So we also discovered, Chris, and this is something for everybody to watch, and certainly we see it firsthand ongoing here in California because of the fires. We're now being told that most of California is in a severe high fire zone. Therefore, insurance companies are no longer renewing fire policies.
Wow.
And the lack of insurance policies is going to dictate where people can live. Because if you cannot get an insurance policy, now granted, there's a baseline policy in California that if you can't get insurance from some of the other carriers, you can revert to this baseline policy, but it is astronomically higher. And I want everybody to watch closely the Nevada City here in Northern California. It's not in Nevada, but it is called Nevada City. It was known in the gold rush times for being a gold rush town. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. Lots of old Victorian homes, beautiful. But it is surrounded by dead, hundreds of thousands of dead conifers that have been killed from all of the heavy chemtrailing. Highly combustible because of the aluminum and the barium strontium, and of course, very combustible. And when the fires start, we're noticing and seeing that we have very low humidity and atmospheric pressure, and we can see heavy, heavy chemtrails. So it's going to be up to every one of you that is listening to observe the weather events coming, because you're not going to be told in the news when things are going to start to occur. In fact, they're going to be blaming increased frequencies for the inability to advance warnings on weather events. Now, you just heard me say something pretty critical. And that information will be posted on stopthecrime.net in a few days. The use of increased frequencies interfering with the ability to forecast weather events. So what that means is we're going to be hit in the dead of night without warning. Without warning. So we're being told here in California, and all of you need to take heed, you need to have a bug out plan, a bag packed up with your identifications. If you own a home, you need to have your insurance policy in that. We're going to be posting a lot of that on our solutions page of stopthecrime.net, because we're meeting now with the fire marshals here in Northern California that are coming up with bug out plans. They're telling us that every inch of California is susceptible to fire, every inch. But there are other locations that are more susceptible to fire. And just 2 days ago, front page of our paper here in Sonoma County, it said that there are 40 areas around where we are that are in the severe, high, intense fire zones. Now, I call that the burn 'em up list, because these are weather weapons being used to create these fires. They could put these fires out because they can make it rain, but they don't. Now, Chris, I want to talk about Solarin, because I don't know that I've mentioned that on your show before.
No, you haven't.
But, okay. Solarin or Solarin, however you'd like to pronounce it, it's spelled Solarin. Now, I want to give you a little backstory on this. Back in 2015, when I did the YouTube, the plan to burn up Northern California, I hope all of you've watched that, because I read something to you in that YouTube that I will not have time to read you now. But again, it's called Plan to Burn Up Northern California. Maybe you can put that under the show links, Chris. But I read an email exchange between Pacific Gas and Electric, who is Rothschild, that's our utility company here in Northern California, and the California Public Utility Commission, who is also run by Rothschild. So you don't have any governing bodies at all. They're all working together. So we discovered that Pacific Gas and Electric signed on to a corporation in Southern California called Solarin, Solarin. And this is a new plan to extract electricity from space. It's energy from outer space. And on the Pacific Gas and Electric website, it says, find out how researchers are boldly going where no watt, W-A-T-T, has gone before, and where the sun always shines. It says solar radiation is the most promising form of space-based power. While a growing solar energy industry already exists, outsourcing to space could help solve a lot of issues. Land-based solar power is limited by night, cloud cover, and the atmosphere. In space, the sun never goes away. Now we're in trouble, because recently, you may have all heard out of the Kennedy Belfer School that it is now admitted that there's going to be massive increased solar dimming. And so naturally, they're going to convince us to accept this weaponized space-based solar satellite system that is going to do this to us. And I'm now looking at some of the patents. So it's important to realize your utility company has a secret, and they're going to be beaming electricity from space for weaponizing commercial space-based solar power satellites. And one of the patents tells us this: a solar-powered satellite will generate a powerful microwave radio frequency beam focused on an array of collector antennas, where it will be transformed to electrical power supplied by your utility company. Under another patent, sounds good so far, right? Under another patent, it says solar-powered satellite will generate a powerful microwave radio frequency beam to control the weather by heating deployments of aluminum oxide or other conductive particulates sprayed from aircraft. The patent describes methods of steering and changing the intensity of hurricanes and more. So Solarin has engineered, they say, a cost, and they're competitive for zero emission electricity from space. And they are launching this now. Let's talk about who's involved in this. There are no borders. There are no borders. Solarin has patents, and they're working with Canada, China, the European Union, India, Japan, the Federation of Russia, and the United States, and more. They're all in it together. This is a beamed weapons system using lasers from space. This is an enormous, enormous continuation of beaming and causing fires. And this is in part what was likely used in many of the fires that we experienced here in Northern California. This system has been looked into since before the 1920s. I look at a document called Earth and Space-Based Power Generation Systems, a comparison study. And when I looked at this and realized how long this has been being worked on to utilize this type of warfare from space, it's really unimaginable how many years this has been dreamt of by the controllers, by the bankers, for utter total enslavement and weaponization from space. I really want to urge everybody to love the people you love the most more. Stay together. Don't allow some of the mind control strategies to isolate you and pick you off with mind control. Now, what do I mean? Mind control is massively advanced. Our thoughts can be controlled. Our moods can be controlled. Mind swiping, memories can be lost. Memories can be put in, false memories. Many of you are aware of targeted individuals. There are millions of targeted individuals worldwide. These people are suffering immensely because weapons systems are being used on them. They're in special programs. We're all now in a special program. Mind control is worldwide. We would not be unable to see the overhead weaponization if we were not already, most people, mind controlled or chemically lobotomized. So stay together with people in your area, form groups so that you understand what is happening and understand any future dates that you read, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, it's all happening right now. And I will be uploading my talk from that I gave in the UK when I have that available, but in the interim, I will be doing a local talk where I will talk about dirty electricity and what is happening with the electricity in the environment that you mentioned earlier about 5G. What I can say to everybody right now, one of the ways in which house-to-house ignition is occurring is because of the intense wireless that we now all have. Many people have Wi-Fi in their homes, wireless laptops. They don't even have corded landlines anymore. They use cell phones. If you are these people and you are in a recognized high fire zone, which we all are, because the atmosphere is being electrified, and more places around the United States will be torched. Fires will be the new norm because of climate change. And what is happening with the intense frequency in the environment, it causes explosions. And several scientists recently spoke to this. Also, it's important to note that all of the accelerated frequencies, the layers of frequencies, not only the smart meters, and if you're in an area, by the way, and you can opt out of having a smart meter, we highly recommend that you do that. Right now, the wireless smart meter water meters are being deployed because your water is going to be reduced to your property. Here in 2020 in California, we're being told that we must reduce our water consumption to 55 gallons of water per person per day. Many people have been experimenting with what that would look like. Single people in a home have not been able to get their daily consumption down under about 190 gallons a minute. You may all want to try this yourself, see what it looks like to use only 55 gallons of water per day under the psyops that we're running out of water, and we're not, of course. But when they called the water company and said, we've been experimenting on reducing our water consumption, the water company said you cannot water exterior plants anymore. So what is happening? It's earth suffocation. It's reducing the oxygen supply as well. We're seeing that happening in the oceans that are being heated up. Ocean acidification. This is all part of this diabolical, satanic, compromised creatures, beings, whatever you want to call them. Total destruction. Total destruction. Destroying everything that is good and decent. So I can only say from the front lines here in Northern California, we are in the Santa Rosa area, which also stands for Satan's Rose. We're in Illuminativille. We're very close to Bohemian Grove, and we're very near San Francisco. And we're in an area where the climate action plans, as in your areas too, are being rolled out. Chris, I want to make a few more comments about what people can expect. And I would certainly recommend that no one let your utility company or anybody into your home to do an energy audit. They're going to sell it to you as being free. Do not let anyone into your home because they will be making notes of all of the things that you will be required to change out in your home. If you do not, in the short, near future, reduce your greenhouse gas emissions with the way that you function in your home will be red tagged and you will not be able to occupy it. Now you think this is crazy, it is crazy, but the health departments are supporting climate change. Type in any agency, health departments, type in the U.S. Bar Association. They're all creating laws. Your police department, the sheriff's department, they're all being run to create laws, rules, regulations in support of climate change when it's weather weapons. We're in big, big trouble, folks. It's monstrous. It's monstrous. We have to chip away with it, one person at a time. And I know that we have many, many very smart and ingenious people that will come up with ways that we can extend our life. But again, I would recommend you searching your spiritual side of things and understanding what is happening. This is a battle certainly between good and evil. And that has been wiped out of our country, sadly. People are not recognizing the enormity of this spiritual warfare that we face. So with regards to the new green agenda, the new Green Deal that you're hearing a lot about, understand that there's a tremendous amount of psychological play on words. It's neuro-linguistic programming. There's nothing green about policies of death. The new Green Deal is not new, it is not green, and it is not a deal. The new Green Deal was foretold in documents many, many years ago, and Silent Weapons and the report from Iron Mountain and many of the other genocide documents that I referred to during this show talk about the reducing of all energy consumption. So don't be psyopsed through words. Look beyond the words. Think of brown and death on anything relating to green, because there's now new green loans and new green financing. And when you're forced to retrofit your home with wireless dishwashers, wireless washing machines, wireless ovens, new water heating systems, new windows, high efficiency windows. I want to make a comment about this. I am talking about the low E energy efficient windows. This is being advocated by our Department of Energy. Remember, the Department of Energy is part of the cabal. Now, why do I say that? Because the high energy efficient low E windows cause fires, Chris. People that have been rebuilding or have been slammed by high winds and windows have blown out, they're replacing windows with these new high energy efficient windows. And when you type in, and I've done a full expose on the fires in these windows, if you go to our email blast outs on stopthecrime.net, you will see an email blast out we did months back warning people about this specific type of window. And the reason that we're warning you is that the window companies will not. You will not read one thing from any of the window companies that these high efficiency low E windows cause fires. And they cause fires because they're double paned windows. They have an argon gas in between. And when the sun is in a certain spot in the afternoons and it's glaring off the windows, those windows kind of cup in a little bit. And the heat magnifies off, is combustible. Now think of it, it's going through this heavily aerosoled atmosphere as well, and it's causing fires. It's torching neighbors. These windows are torching neighbors' homes. They have, dependent on the beam of the light, like a magnifying glass, they've burned down neighbors' cars. And this is being advocated by the Department of Energy. In fact, we were in communication with an area in Montana that suffered severe wind damage, and they were replacing homes and more, fences, etc. This is months back. And the builder that did not know about these windows causing fires replaced all the windows with these windows that cause fires. So now you know. Help your neighbors as they're rebuilding, as these weapons systems blow through, blast through your communities and you rebuild. Understand many of the materials are poisonous, toxic, and intended to cause further harm. The assault upon us is boundless. I haven't yet found an end to this, Chris. Everywhere we turn, it magnifies more. And the weapons systems that are engaged are unthinkable. As part of the recent emergency alert systems that are being deployed in areas that have been hit by weaponized weather attacks, I mean, this is war. They're rolling in our area and other areas, LiDAR equipment on the mountaintops. Now, LiDAR is a military frequency. And this has already been rolled out in San Diego in Southern California, in Lake Tahoe, and right here in Sonoma County. And LiDAR pulses out in real time, all the time, a radius of over 250 miles. And you can actually go onto a website and watch the various types of events. They're saying the reason that they have deployed this emergency alert system is they can then ascertain the amount of equipment that's necessary to assist areas that have been possibly affected by the fires, by the floods, by dams being intentionally released, etc., earthquakes, and more. So the LIDAR is, again, another level of military battlefield frequencies that are being rolled out across this country and worldwide.
It's unbelievable the amount of technology and just sheer malevolent what they're going through just to try and depopulate us is unbelievable. And
well, this is a blood sacrifice, Chris. This is enjoyment.
Right.
This is like a horrific, deadly video game gone live. And our streets are monitored. Cameras are everywhere. We now have smart telephone poles that people can sit 60 miles, 100 miles away and view your neighborhood from your telephone poles. Did you know that?
No, I mean, the stuff
now you do.
Something new every day that's just amazing and terrifying at the same time.
Well, what we have to do is we have to take a deep breath, and I should be one to talk. I'm in and out of truth trauma on a regular basis. I have such pain and such sorrow for what I see happening to us and my children and my grandchildren and other children and grandchildren. There is such deep sorrow, and I have to say, I find some solace in realizing that we default into eternity and out of what now is presenting itself as hell on earth. I also, as many of you, need to hear information like this so that I know I'm not alone in hearing information like this. We need to create communities of awareness for those that understand what is happening so we are not isolated. And again, I started to say earlier, and this is extremely important, understand the level of mind control and understand the level of psychotronic weapons that are being used on us to not only eliminate the family unit, which must be done, but to isolate us so we can be picked off quietly with no one being aware that we're all being individually picked off. Understand what happened in Central Africa in the mid-90s when we literally blew up the planned meeting that the CIA created with the Hutu and the Tutsi African tribes to solve some differences. All the while, the CIA was fomenting differences on the ground, just like what is happening right now in Venezuela. Venezuela is in a takedown right now, and so is Cuba. Having said that, after they dropped the bomb, after they set the meeting up between the two tribal chiefs in the mid-1990s, there were Hercules 130 planes sitting nearby on the tarmac that took off. And they beamed microwaves on the Hutu tribe, which exacerbated their anger towards the Tutsis. And they absolutely went ballistic. And they slaughtered over 1 million Africans. That's the Rwanda genocide. These weapons have been used in Operation Desert Storm on the Iraqis. These weapons are being used on us. Our de facto criminal, weaponized government is using these weapons on us. So unplug, wire up everything you can in your homes, stay plugged in to people that know what's going on so that you don't feel so isolated and lonely. Understand that we're going through individual battles. I personally believe that this is all part of an ascension process. We're all in 3D, and that we will be, and for many, this is how we grow. I don't know what you believe. I know that Christians are under heavy assault right now, and I would take a look at looking at what you believe. I would strongly take a look, because if these documents that are so black and evil don't allow you to see that you're looking at sheer satanic evil on this planet now, and that there is the opposing good here as well, this is our opportunity. This is what I believe, Chris, is our process right now.
Yes, and that's very well said. And Deborah, that's what, one of the best things about your research is people can verify it themselves. People can go and look at these documents themselves. I mean, it's right there in black and white. And I want to thank you so much. That was very important information. Everybody needs to hear this, whether they believe it or not. It's happening. 5G is getting rolled out. All these things that we just talked about are going to happen. And once again, just give us your website and YouTube channel before you go, please.
Yes, Chris, thank you so much. Everybody, please visit stopthecrime.net on a regular basis. Go to our Hot Topics page where I post many documents. Go to our resource document page, our solutions page, but most importantly, also go to our YouTube video channel. We're posting radio shows consistently. We'll be posting this one as well. Also go to primarywater.org, understand the water facts. If you know people that are in the rural country areas that can access primary water after they understand it exists, and teach the well driller to go for primary water, because sadly the well drillers have been trained like the MDs. They don't understand or know about primary water. Get to water where you can. I know many people now that are getting to primary water. We don't survive without water. We will be forcibly relocated off of our properties as they expand the illusion that we're running out of water and that the aquifers are overpumped. And that's another conversation that I have not had time to get into in this program today, but it's very important conversation. So, Chris, during the heat of the summer, as you're hearing California burn, call me and we'll talk more about what we see happening here,
Yes,
so that we can get this information out.
Yeah. That was amazing information. I'm definitely going to have you back on. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Right. You have a great night.
You as well. Everybody be safe.